Christy with the Chirp YouTube channel. This is a special video because I got a really good comment from a young viewer, and I wanted to answer this question, or at least address this issue, before I continue with my little 5-step plan for helping an upset child. I just think this needs to be addressed, and so I'm going to address it. A while back, I don't remember exactly how long, I did a video on autism and self-harm. I will put the link to that video right there. I was thinking, of course, since I'm a speech pathologist, I was thinking of this from the provider or the caregiver's perspective. I was giving ideas for caregivers or families or professionals to help kids who were harming themselves. I was not thinking about this from the perspective of the person who was harming himself or herself. That's what this video is. If you are harming yourself, the first thing I want to say is, please get professional help. I cannot help you to solve this problem through this YouTube video. All I can do is give you some tips and some resources to help yourself. But there are professionals who can work you through this process, who can make this easier for you, who can listen with compassion, who can understand you better than I can because I don't know you personally. Please do not put off seeing a counselor, finding a good psychologist. Maybe there's one at your school. Maybe you can talk to your parents about seeing someone who can help you. You also probably want to talk to maybe a speech pathologist, especially if you're watching this video because you have a diagnosis of autism. Speech pathologists oftentimes can help work through some of the communication issues that we will talk about in a moment that can cause the kind of pain and suffering that can lead to self-harm. I also want to say, as I begin, this is not an issue that I myself have struggled with, and I do not have a diagnosis of an autism spectrum disorder. I can't experience what you are experiencing, but I can listen and I can commiserate with some of the things that you are experiencing. I've worked with people with autism for a really long time, and I love a lot of people with autism. So hopefully this video is helpful to you, and hopefully it directs you towards some healthier paths for dealing with some of this pain that you're having. That is the thing that I wish to discuss now, is the fact that from what the research says, self-harm is a way of expressing pain, is a way of trying to deal with pain. And in autism, because there are diagnostic criteria, things, a checklist we have to mark off to say, yes, this person has autism, or no, this person doesn't have autism, we have specific areas in development and function where people with autism have more difficulty. You can watch my little series on the diagnostic criteria of autism right there. The first one is social. People with autism have difficulty with social interactions, with social skills, relating to other people, building friendships, maintaining friendships, knowing how to do a back and forth interaction. This is difficult for people who have autism. This can cause pain in various ways. If you feel alone in the world, that is an emotionally painful thing. If you feel that you are a burden on your family, if you feel like people are forced to be nice to you, they don't actually like you, that's a very painful feeling. Some of these feelings related to social problems, social deficits, can lead to the kind of pain that may manifest itself in self-harm. If I feel like I don't know how to make friends, I don't know how to be a friend, that is another problem in the social realm. A second area in autism that might lead to the kind of pain that can cause or manifest in self-harm is communication. Communication is an area where people with autism have a weakness, according to the diagnosis. So, some of the communication skills that can be affected are things like knowing how to talk to people. Talking to people can be a great support for people who are struggling emotionally, but if you have a weakness in that area and you don't know how to communicate successfully with people, then you're going to have an area where you're not getting the kind of support you need, which can lead to terrible emotional pain. Some kind of self-harm, cutting, biting yourself, pulling hair out, pulling eyelashes out, any kind of self-harm can also be a way to scream for help, to say, I need help, without actually having to verbally say, I need help. If I don't know how to ask for help to deal with my emotions, then I might display that need by harming myself in some way, because at least people might pay attention then. Self-harm might also be a way to communicate that I feel alone. I need some social interaction, but social skills and communication skills are really hard for me. So I might harm myself to try to communicate that I need those things. A third area which might lead to the kind of pain that might display itself in self-harm is emotional difficulties. Of course, all these things are leading to emotional difficulties, but I'm talking specifically about the kind of emotional difficulties where I don't know how to experience, label my emotions, and I don't know how to deal with them in appropriate ways. If I'm feeling angry, but I don't know that I'm angry because I don't have that connection in my brain, I don't recognize emotions very well, and honestly, this is an issue that I do struggle with. Not angry so much, but I have trouble with sad, I have trouble with anxious. I don't recognize them until I practice some specific strategies, which I will share with you in a moment. If I don't recognize my own emotions, then I can't deal with them appropriately and in healthy, safe ways for me and for other people. So obviously that's going to be a problem. Now that we have discussed some of the reasons behind maybe why a person might be doing self-harming behaviors, I'm going to give you some recommendations. Please keep in mind, I'm not a psychologist, I'm a speech-language pathologist. I do work a lot on emotional regulation, on social emotional skills. I work on this all the time with all the kids that I work with, and the teens and adults too. It's very important. But I'm not a psychologist, and I do think that you should probably have one of those on your team. You should also have in-person people on your team, not just online people, if possible. Some of that will be virtual because we live in a world where you can have a therapist visit with someone who's in your phone. It's a real person, but you're not really in her office. You are in your bedroom talking on the phone. That's totally fine, and it's going to work. She's going to still give you the same strategies that she would give you if she were in your bedroom with you, or if you were in her office. My first recommendation, therefore, is to find professionals to help you. Self-harm is an issue that can escalate, and you need to have people helping you create strategies so that you don't get worse. If I am missing a skill, I don't want to just kind of cover that up and use some sort of unhealthy behavior to kind of ignore that. I want to learn that skill. And a lot of times these kind of behaviors indicate that there is a missing skill. Let's figure out what that skill is. To do that, oftentimes, we need a fellow investigator. and your psychologist, your counselor, your therapist, your speech-language pathologist, whoever you have in your life who's going to help you, these are your fellow investigators. Let's be curious about this. Let's not be embarrassed. Let's not be ashamed. Let's be curious. It's just like any other medical issue. We have to find out what the cause is before we can get the right treatment. You need to find out the right cause. Please get a professional. I've put links down below where you can find more information about this. But of course, you're probably going to have to Google your own country, your own state, and the kind of professional that you're looking for. Please recruit your parents if you are a child or a young adult or an adult who could use some assistance finding a good professional. My second recommendation is to learn to practice recognizing your own emotions. This has been a hard one for me in my life. When I was a kid, I was super anxious, but I didn't recognize it. I just thought my stomach was upset or I had a headache. But in most cases, my stomach wasn't the problem and my head wasn't the problem. The problem was that I was scared. I was afraid of my new classroom at school, or I was anxious that I didn't do the math problems fast enough. Our bodies tell us a lot, and I think that's the first place to tune in. So look at your body. If I'm feeling anxious, I tend to clamp my teeth down. I tend to feel kind of upset in my stomach. There are signals that my body is giving me that something emotional is going on. It's good to kind of keep track of some of these things yourself. Sometimes you might not know until after your self-harm incident that you were ramping up to harming yourself. In which case, immediately, once you kind of get out of that incident, create for yourself a journal. So write down what was going through my head before I harmed myself. What were the physical symptoms I was feeling? Was I feeling like a knot in my intestines? Was I tense? Did I have really balled up fists? Did I have wrinkles right here? Did I seem like I might have been angry? What kind of bodily signals was my body giving me? Now that we have a nice, let me turn my page, because I have notes. Now that we have a nice little piece of paper, a nice little list of what I was feeling before I cut myself, before I pulled out a huge chunk of hair, whatever the case is. I don't know what your self-harm behavior is, but whatever it is, you now have written down what was your body feeling like, what was your mind feeling like before you did that behavior. And now we want to analyze that a bit. We want to ask ourselves, how did this behavior help the situation? Maybe it helped me to get out some negative energy so that I didn't put it on someone else. Maybe otherwise I might have tried to hit my little sister, and I don't want to do that. So it was better if I hurt myself. Maybe it distracted me from my feelings for a little while. Maybe I was so focused on how much it hurt that I didn't feel angry anymore. Whatever the benefit was from this behavior, write that down. Then we need to write out, how did this behavior create harm? Obviously, it hurt you. It caused pain, maybe scarring, maybe now you have a bald spot, maybe you feel embarrassed and ashamed of yourself or disappointed in yourself that you did it again, and once again you're a burden. Whatever those things are that you tell yourself, write those down, the harms of this behavior. Also, I want you to write down other people who are harmed by the behavior that you did. For example, if your little sister walked in on you, you had just cut yourself and you're all bloody, your little sister is traumatized by this. Not only do you now have trauma from injuries and from the emotional aspect of this self-harm, but your little sister also has been affected. And then of course when your sister yells, your mom comes in, your mom is also affected, and we want to write those things down. Negative effects on me are this, negative effects on my family, negative effects maybe on my friendships, because if people see me come to school and I'm all beaten up, or I have a chunk of my hair that's missing, I might get some weird looks, and that might prevent me from having the kind of relationships that I want to have. Then we're going to brainstorm here. We're going to think, what can I do differently next time? So next time I notice that I am gritting my teeth, that I have these wrinkles on my forehead, yours are probably not as big as mine because I'm a little bit older than you, maybe. Are my fists pumped up? Do I have a yucky feeling in my stomach? Next time I have those little signals, what could I do instead of harming myself? We need to be a little creative here, and this is usually kind of difficult. If you wrote down on your list that harming yourself distracted you and made you hurt enough that you didn't think about your anger anymore, then maybe one thing that you could try instead is running really hard on a treadmill, because let me tell you, I am a runner, and sometimes running hurts really bad because my legs are so tired. I can't breathe. It feels kind of a little bit like torture, but I really love it because it does distract me from everything else in the world, because I just have to keep my feet going, and that's the only thing I have to do in that moment. And when I come home from a nice run around in my neighborhood, I really feel different. You might try that. I have listed down below in the information box, I have a link to a list, maybe more than one list, of ideas, strategies that you could use that can help you deal with emotions that are difficult to deal with. I also have books down there that will help you listen to the emotional signals that are happening in your body. One of them is this one. It's a really fat book, so if your reading skills are excellent, then you might want to consider this one. It really helped me deal with some emotions that I thought I didn't have. I realized that I did have them. There's a lot of visualization practices that she recommends for dealing with emotions, and I really appreciate that. You could also use this process. It's called the Incredible 5-Point Scale. La la la. All right, and it's an example. There's not going to be room for me in the screen. The examples are, we rate things on a scale from 1 to 5. So in this case, it's anxiety, my anxiety level. And this is really helpful because then you can practice putting yourself on this scale of 1 to 5. If you are totally relaxed and fine, you're a 1. If you are totally out of control, then you're at a 5. And you can put different strategies into place depending on where you are on your scale. So if you're at a 3, you need to start doing some self-calming strategies. You need to go for your run. You need to take a nap. You need to rip paper into tiny pieces. Whatever strategies that you pick from the lists that I have down below, once you reach a 3 on your scale of 1 to 5, you should start putting these strategies into place. Once you get to 5, it's too late. You are already doing whatever self-harm that you are trying to avoid. So we need to intervene before you get to a 5. Some other examples of ways that you can deal with difficult emotions. If I'm sad, I might need to plan to have a good cry. There's nothing wrong with crying, and honestly, this is a personal story from me to you, I tend to not want to cry because it's loud sometimes if I'm kind of, my face looks horrible. I get all blotchy. I don't like that my mascara runs off my face. I don't like to be needy, and I don't like to be too emotional. But if I tell myself I am really, really sad and I can feel tears kind of prickling, and I just give in to the tears for a couple of minutes, they don't last forever. And I'm able to move through that emotion faster than if I kept fighting to not experience that emotion. So sometimes you just need to cry. If you are angry, maybe you rip paper into small pieces. Maybe you go for that run. Maybe you do some really difficult yoga. I have some really hard yoga where you're balancing in a very precarious position, and it takes all my effort just focused on not falling down. Sometimes I need that so that I can be distracted from my feelings just for a little bit so that they become less intense, and when I get back to them, I can handle them with more wisdom. Some other ideas are doing art, drawing pictures or painting, or writing poetry, or writing a letter to yourself of encouraging yourself that you're doing a good job, you're really proud of yourself. All of these things can be really good strategies for dealing with difficult emotions. I also recommend, I should have recommended this a little bit earlier, but I recommend that you find some sort of a community so that you can all be working on these things together. I know that there are autism support groups on Reddit and all over the internet, I'm sure, but you need to find one that isn't just, I have autism, so I cut myself sometimes, but instead is more along the lines of, I cut myself sometimes and I want to learn better the skills that I need so I don't need that as a coping mechanism anymore. I have better skills so that I can do more healthy coping mechanisms. We need to have people who have already succeeded sometimes in areas where we're still struggling so they can help us through it. So if you can find a mentor, somebody in the autism community perhaps, who has experienced what you're experiencing and who's willing to help you through that, that would be ideal. But even if you don't, just having a group of people, I have a few friends, and that's good, isn't it, Miss Christie? That's great. I have friends and we have a WhatsApp group, and when something happens and I need support, I will message them and say, my mom just said this terrible thing to me, and what I want to do is be really angry and stomp around. I'm going to have a little nap. I'm going to have a snack of some healthy food, and I'm going to take some deep breaths, and I think that will help me feel better. And then they check in on me. Good idea, Christy. You're doing the right thing by not yelling at her. Just let this feeling pass. All emotions eventually pass. They are not eternal. They come and they go, just like ocean waves. In fact, I have a couple of emotion management meditations down in the box below this video, so check those out. They might be helpful. Ask yourself, what do I need to help myself recover? Maybe you need some sensory input of some kind. I have some books that talk about that. I will put the links to all these down below. Understanding your child's sensory signals, but you can definitely use this on yourself. It talks about if I find myself craving fast spinning or intense movement, here are some ways that I can deal with that. If I find myself moving my eyes back and forth really fast, here are some other ways I could get that same feeling. This is a helpful book. This is another one, a buffet of sensory interventions. That's a good one for looking up different sensory activities that might help you feel calmer, because we all have sensory system, and we all need to help regulate our sensory system sometimes. There's one more sensory book I want to mention, and it's this one, Sensory Processing 101. And it is really good for dealing with, it will explain all these in more detail, but for example, what is my vestibular system? And then you can find activities that will help if you have the sense that your vestibular system might need a little more input. This video got a little bit long, but I wanted to make sure to address the issue with some depth, because it's a huge issue and it breaks my heart that so many people really are struggling. I don't want you to harm yourself. I understand why you do. And I want to make sure that you get the support so that you can learn better ways of dealing with all of the emotions that are coming up from life, from your struggles. Please feel free to leave me comments or to email me. I will do my best to point you in the right directions to get whatever help that you need. And also, don't forget to go down in the box and find some resources that will definitely help you. Not just these books, because you may or may not have money to buy books, but there will be websites that you can access for free that will hopefully help you, including some worksheets that will help you work through that process of assessing your behavior, how it harmed, how it helped, who else it might have harmed, and what you might be able to do instead. I hope this video was helpful to you. Once again, thank you to the dear young person who posed this comment, and I hope you are all well. Take good care of yourself. I care about you, and I wish you the best. See you in my next video. Bye. If you have the sensation that your vestibular system